Hi, this is Paul Slatkus, Good News Planet. I'm speaking to Charles D. Morgan. Hello, Charles. How are you?
Paul, how are you? I'm doing very, very well. Thank you.
Well, this is very exciting. You're a son of an Arkansas frontierer, I guess, and embodies the Americans' transition from the rusty mechanical age to the new frontier of the digital age, matters of life and data. That's the name of your book. It's a memoir, remarkable journey of big data visionary whose work impacted millions, including me. What do you mean, me? How'd you impact me?
Well, everybody literally in this modern world that comes in contact with the results of the big data efforts that we had at Acxiom. I mean, one of which, not the least of which, if you've ever gotten a credit card pre-approved credit offer, it's 80% chance it came from Acxiom, the company that I built. If you've gotten a communication from, marketing communication from GM or Mercedes, or you had one from Discover Card, or various insurance companies, that Acxiom may have had something to do with preparing the data and helping with the analytics, that decided that Paul was the right guy to communicate with. So, yes, even you, and we even helped after 9/11 track down the bad guys. So, your data is everywhere, Paul. It's everywhere.
Thank you. Now I must thank you for a lot of wonderful work. Well, I've heard lots of nice, good things about you, actually. So, but tell us, how did you? What brought you into that kind of a world, that kind of a business? What inspired that?
It was to a great extent kind of an accident. I guess you end up, where you're meant to end up. And I certainly had no idea where I was going to end up when I started the journey. As you mentioned earlier, I was born and raised in Fort Smith, Arkansas, right on the edge of Indian Territory. And I grew up with fascination with cars and gadgets and motorcycles and just technical engineering type solving problems. So obviously I wanted to be an engineer. And I got a degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Arkansas. Said, I want to go out and design race cars. Well, as you can well imagine, I kind of figured out in 1965, it's going to be really hard to make a living designing race cars in 1965. So I did the second best thing. I went to work for IBM. And by the way, when I went to work for IBM, I had never seen a computer. Never touched one, never seen one, but I sort of heard of them. And the job that IBM offered sounded fascinating. It sounded like an engineering-type problem-solving job. And while I didn't have any idea what programming was, and I honestly didn't, how computers worked, I didn't understand that. But I did know that it sounded interesting when I read the literature. So I went to work for IBM and almost immediately fell in love with computers and software and the problems that they could solve. And that's been a lifelong fascination since my early 20s.
Wow, that's marvelous. Actually, I'm on the board of an organization called SeniorNet. And we're celebrating the 30th anniversary next year. This organization's been teaching the 50-plus community how to use those computers, and it started from IBM. Where retirees would come out and they would manage the centers. That's a great company. Wow. How many years were you with them?
35 years.
Oh, my God. I'll tell you another little story.
I retired in 2008, and I've been in a tech startup since then called Privacy Star. We're in the mobile applications business now, but I don't have 7,000 employees any longer. I've only got 50. So it's much more fun to leave 50 than it is 7,000. Because when you have 7,000 people working hard, all you're doing is herding cats. So there you go.
I'll tell you, I grew up near IBM. I'm going to give you a little anecdote, a little story, only because maybe you'd appreciate. When I got the bar mitzvah, when I was 13, I grew up in Tarrytown, up in Westchester County, and Armonk wasn't far away. My
That's
rabbi
right.
said, I'm only going to tell you one thing, all right? One bit of advice. Buy IBM stock.
There you go. Well, in those days, if you had done it, you did very well, that's for sure. Very well. I actually, when we had an office in New York, the guy who was running our sales operation up there lived in Harrison, New York.
Right.
Because we didn't have any money as a young company. That's after I left IBM and joined Acxiom Corp, which is the one I built. For a number of years, I would go catch the train at night and ride home and spend the night at his house. And so at least 5 or 6, maybe 8 days a month, I was a commuter on the rail line up there, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
And we had an office in the Helmsley building right there by the station, so it was incredibly convenient, and we had a lot of good memories. We had an office in New York, even apartments in New York for many, many years.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, let me ask an IBMer for 35 years, successful with your credit cards and... Sorry?
I wasn't IBM 30. I was Acxiom for 35. IBM was only 5 years of that. So,
apologize.
Yeah.
Sorry. What
right.
inspired you then to become an author?
Well, it's kind of a funny thing. I had many people for many, many years say, your company has employed all these people in Arkansas, and I've got a cousin working for you, and I hear about all these things you do. You've got jet airplanes, and you got all these people coming and going. Can you explain to me what you all do? And I try to do that. And they said, why don't you just write a book and explain it? So I had a lot of people tell me that over the years, and one day I decided that it might be fun to write a book. Now, what I didn't tell you is, being the CEO of a startup right now, I didn't realize quite how much time writing that book was going to take. And it actually took a lot more time than I actually expected it would. But it's been a fun and rewarding experience, and I've talked to a lot of interesting people like yourself who are interested in finding out about big data and cloud computing and all the stuff that we did. And I get questions about privacy, security, and far field questions from a lot of people about the book and my experiences. So it's been fun.
All right. You got General Wesley Clark. We interviewed at one point.
Yeah.
He says, Charles Morgan tells how companies are built and wealth is created. It's a story as American as apple pie. The proof again that America is rich in talent beyond her elite universities and privileged families. So does that mean you didn't go to an elite university, or did you?
Oh, I did. The University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Of course.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I thought so.
Smart, Alex.
That's a good thing. So the word big data, what does that mean to you?
I jokingly say, and if you look up the big data definition in the Oxford Dictionary, I think it says a lot of data, which is people look at that, and I've given that explanation. They go, well, why is it big data? Well, big data has got a lot of other connotations to it. One of the connotation is that it's not just a lot of data, but it's a way to store that information. It's a way to manipulate it, and it is a way to update it, and it's a way to access that data. So it's a lot of data that is usable in some type of other process, or many process. Analytics is a good example. Our security is an example. Our network performance is a good example of big data applications.
Would you say you're good in math?
Oh, I'm much better at math than I am at arithmetic. I struggle adding up a column of numbers without making a mistake every other time. So I'm pretty good at math. I had good grades in, various math courses, but I was even better in thermodynamics. I like a lot of the practical application of math.
Because isn't math and that math and science all part of big data?
Really. Yeah, it really is. Some of the very advanced theories of when we talk about big data, you're really implying the analytical side of big data, which is one of the main reasons that people do assemble big data resources. And absolutely, advanced math theory is much a component of the various analytical techniques that are used. And anymore, if you look at some of the fundamentals behind things like Hadoop and some of the advanced tools that are being used, you see a bunch of mathematical functions that are used to describe the analytics that they provide. So yes, some of the old traditional things like a multivariate analysis, factor analysis, all the kind of statistical things that go on are really embodied in a lot of ways in big data. So big data is just a collection of things that not only help you collect, store, and analyze large amounts of data.
So Matters of Life and Data, a memoir. What do you want people to come out of it after they read it? What do you want them to?
I think there are two things. One, a lot of people say, and sort of what you got from Wesley Clark is really and by the way, Wesley Clark loves pizza. I run into him at the pizza joint in Little Rock all the time. I like the same pizza joint. But it's both a business book. It's a story of how you build a business, how you build a team, and it also describes some of the pitfalls of not understanding and having a clear strategy. It's the business of getting a clear vision and creating a team that has that common clear vision and keeping everybody on course to achieve that vision and keeping them together a long time. Building a business is hard work. If you read the book, you'll find out that twice during the history of our company, I had to put the senior leadership on half or significantly reduced salaries because we got into financial difficulty in the early days. But, you've got to have people who will stick together and work hard for a common goal. And so some people say it's a really good business book, and a lot of people read it and say, hey, that's just a great story. I love some of your stories about sex and intrigue. Well, that's a sidebar, you understand. That's not the mainstream, but I really
it's a marvelous book. Congratulations. It's a very, 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 very important book for anybody in the world of business, whether they're in the data world or just in the entrepreneurship of life. Let me ask you two last questions. I know you have another interview. Sure. What's good news for you?
Well, the good news, I think, is that we are finding that big data and the new tools and technologies can make our life better on this earth. We have this thing we call the Internet of Things, which means that data is being collected at every possible point. And one side, it's scary, when somebody follows me around. If I've got an Internet of Things device in my clothes, maybe somebody follows me up and down the street. And rather than worrying so much about that, I think everybody needs to be aware of some of the possible misuses. We also have a lot of applications that make it easier to get our food delivered, our package delivered. People market more relevant things to us. It can make our life much more efficient. One of the great practitioners of big data is Uber. My wife will now go to New York, Paul. She will now go to New York because she can get an Uber, car, and she doesn't ever worry about getting, stranded somewhere. She was always afraid to go by herself for fear, it'd rain or something, she couldn't get a car. Now she goes to New York with her daughter-in-law and others, and Uber. Great big data practitioner. Have you used Uber Taylor in New York yet?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I know a lot about them, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll tell you straight out, I have only one regret. Because when I was a producer at CBS and they canceled Love of Life, the soap opera that I was on, right? I went and drove car service. And I only regret that I didn't think of Uber.
Why not? Who did? I didn't either.
What are you going to do?
Smart tech guy, but I didn't think of it either. But I'm just giving you some examples of the things that big data is helping us with our everyday life. So there is a downside, but there also is a great upside of things like Uber and UPS is a great big data. FedEx is big data. You can track your packages, and they have data collection coming in from all over the world. Building these massive data collection systems that track packages and check weather and airplane flight schedules, so they know if something's going to be delayed. That's really a big data application.
There you go. And the interesting part with them is that the founder started as a newspaper boy. That's UPS, a newspaper boy.
I think we should have. Well, I had a boy across the street that was part of my Matters of Life and Data book. He ran 2 paper routes. I used to go on the paper routes with him sometimes at 6 in the morning. But FedEx, FedEx is really an Arkansas boy, Fred Smith.
Right.
And sadly enough, he tried to put FedEx headquarters in Little Rock. And the Little Rock City Fathers and Airport Commission said that was a goofy-ass idea and wouldn't have any part of it.
He also got a C on his paper in Yale about moving packages.
Yes, well, they thought he was a dumbass, too.
It's not easy. Let me ask one last question, Charles. Real honor, you're a real business leader, and thank you so much for speaking with us. The last one, we're very involved with achieving world peace. Actually, this year is the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. And we ask everybody, what's peace mean to them? So, Charles Morgan, what does peace mean to you?
Well, I think peace to me is peace in the world that's defined by being able to go to sleep at night and not worry about your health and safety and the health and safety of your family, not just tonight, but for the foreseeable future. Do you feel secure in the world that you live in? And I think world peace can be shattered by, a loss of cybersecurity. World peace would be shattered if the bad guys, which I like to call them, whoever they might be, were able to shut down our banking system and our power grid and make it very difficult for us to know life and live life as we've come to enjoy it. So, there are a lot of things that can threaten our health, safety, and outlook on the world. And I don't think it's just, thermonuclear war, which is what we used to worry about. I think there are a lot of other things that we need to worry about, not the least of which is massive terror attacks, which you see in other parts of the world. So, boy, that was a question out of left field.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's an important one. We have events on September 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st, and for Times Square and Central Park and Silicon Valley, which is a very important place for an event there. We're doing cyberbullying. There's a concern with data. Well,
absolutely, that is. And by the way, I'm a great student of World War II. I read everything Churchill ever wrote, and that was a great hobby of mine, was to try to understand from history. And I think that sense of history that you can learn from World War II, is being lost to the current generation of young people, which I think is a tragedy.
Yeah, 100% right. Well, Charles Morgan, thank you very much. Matters of Life and Data, a memoir, a remarkable journey.
Website. Yeah, go to our website, mattersoflifeanddata.com. I've got some videos on there. You can order a book. As much as anything else, you can follow us on LinkedIn. I do a lot of tweeting on cybersecurity and stuff like that. So I seem to never manage to mention in these interviews, but yeah, I'm interested in a lot of the topics you're talking about for sure.
Fantastic. Charles, thanks so much for sharing good news with us.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.